Hello and welcome to another beautiful edition of Transport Line, the program that makes the difference. Coming to you live from the mega city of Lagos, state of aquatic splendor and the fifth largest economy in Africa. You will observe that in the last 3 years of the administration of Governor Akinwumi Ambode of Lagos State, the citizens have witnessed tremendous improvement on road infrastructure in the state. What do you want to mention? Footbridges, walkways, laybys, construction of BRT lanes, construction of new roads, road repairs, and what have you in Lagos, and including Light Up Lagos projects. Well, how have these developments been put into use by the people as well as officials of the government itself to justify or reflect the huge amount of money spent on it? Well, this is going to form the focus of our discussion tonight on Transport Line. But before then, let us quickly take this report on the recent visit of the Minister of Transportation, Mr. Rotimi Amici, to the ongoing construction of the standard gauge rail project on the axis of Ogun, Ibadan.
Rotimi Ameti's inspection of the ongoing Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail project, the second within a month, has given credence of its importance to the federal government. The Minister of Transportation, accompanied by officials of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, NRC, and representatives of the China Civil Engineering Construction Company, inspected the Ijuogun State and Ibadan area of the project, where 1.2 kilometers of tracks are being laid daily. The ongoing construction of bridges at Kpakpalanto in Ogun State and laying of tracks at Adumbu in Itori area of the same state. The Chinese construction firm officials, however, lamented that the Iju-Lagos area of the construction is being slowed down because of buried water pipes, oil and gas turbines. The rainy season, according to the contractors, has compounded and slowed down pace of work. Rotimi Ameti is, however, optimistic that the Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge rail track project will meet its commissioning date deadline.
I'm impressed with the Lagos State government. The commissioner for one of the commissioners, I don't know what Infrastructure was in today's meeting. The issues are being resolved. We're almost nearly resolving the issue of oil and gas pipelines. The water, the Lagos State government is going to come back to us in 2 weeks with the permanent solution. We have our own solutions, and they think that the solutions we have can be expanded further. So they're coming forward with their own expanded solution. We believe that in next month, Lagos State, we shall start working from the Lagos angle.
You are welcome back. Now, put in another word, I did say in the prologue that we are going to be considering or looking at the huge amount of money spent by the government of Lagos State on road infrastructure and the attitude of people to reflect the amount of money spent. In any case, we are going to be discussing how civil, how safe, and how considerate are Lagos road users. Well, to help us this evening on the topic is no other person than the Chief Executive Officer of Automedics, Engineer Kunle Shonaike. You are welcome, sir.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome, sir. Now, before now, bad road, mechanical state of the vehicle, and the attitude of the people or habits of Lagos road users were causes or reasons for worries on Lagos roads. Now, with the improved conditions of the roads, how safe is it to travel on Lagos roads?
Well, relatively, I would say it's safe to travel on Lagos Road. The reason why I would say it's safe to travel on Lagos Road is with the advent of the LASMA and some of the task force provided by the state government, people have no choice but to obey some of these traffic rules. And if you look at it, at every major intersection of roads, you will see a LASMA officer, you will see police, traffic officers at this point. The only problem we have are the yellow buses. These are the real menace of the society when it comes to, I mean,
Sanity on our road.
sanity on our
And
road.
civility.
Yes, these are the only problem. I mean, I'm talking of the commercial drivers, the yellow bus, which we call the Danfo, the Napep, Keke Marua, and the Okada riders. These are the only problem we have. And when other people see them doing it and nothing is happening to them, of course, people would tend to want to join in the madness and said, okay, if he can do it, I can do it too. Yes, most times the police officer or the last mile officer will stop the private car before they stop the commercial vehicle.
Yeah, let us look at some other private vehicle operators too. They also, in some cases and in parts of Lagos State, they also commit more crime, as it were, more than this yellow.
Oh yes, yeah. You see, you said we want to consider how safe,
How civil,
how civil,
how
and
considerate.
how considerate
Yes,
are
Lagos road users.
Lagos road users, most especially Lagos drivers. Let's just use Lagos driver, because if you're talking of Lagos road user, we're also talking of the pedestrians.
Of course, we are taking all of them into consideration.
We're taking everybody into consideration.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at the private drivers. An average driver on Lagos Road do not have the understanding of the highway code. That's my own understanding. And from research, an average, if you put 20 drivers together and put an highway code down for them to go over or read or tell you some of the road signs, maybe 1% will be able to recite and tell you the correct use of those road infrastructure, road furniture as we call it. What does this sign says, what does this sign means?
Okay.
So, and when you're talking of civil, safe, considerate, we can't just separate the drivers. As you're looking at the driver, you're looking at the policymaker, which is the government.
Exactly.
You are also looking at the enforcement agencies.
Of course.
For you to get a license, yes, it has changed, because I just renewed my license, despite the fact that they know me there. I had to go through my written test to go through the normal procedure. I have to answer some questions on the highway code. They did my eye test to make sure I can see with my glasses. All those things were done. So it's changing, but do we still have people cutting corners? Yes. People are still cutting corners. And this is one of the reasons, the reasons why we'll still have some of this problem. But this challenge is not only peculiar to Nigeria. It happens in some of this other Western world. It's just that if you are caught, there is a penalty for you violating that rule or regulation. You pay dearly for it. So people don't do it. They won't even try it.
Okay.
But here, people think they can get away with it.
Don't you think we should have a fifth columnist, to actually track, the activities of these people to crack the syndicate in the issuance of license and stuff like that? Because you gave a very, very worrying percentage of road users or drivers, as it were, who actually understand road signs. So that will imply that they either did not go through proper
channel
to obtain their licenses or something like that. Now, don't you suggest, or will you agree that there should be fifth columnist that should actually track the activities of these people, those who are cutting corners, in order to crack
the only fifth columnist that can track or stop this problem is still the enforcement agency, which is the policymaker, the government. You see, government can only do so much. Let me put it this way. You always have somebody at the top. I'll give kudos to His Excellency Governor Akinwumi Ambode. They're doing a lot in terms of road infrastructure, sensitization of the people about the transportation system in Lagos. But there's somebody at the helms of affair of that particular organization that oversees the issuance of driver's license. That person cannot be everywhere. It can only be in one place at a time. So there has to be check and balances. I think over time we're going to get there. We are getting there because I've been to some of these locations. They just opened about 8 different locations now. Some of the locations I've been to, I see that things are changing. Things are changing. People are doing things the right way.
Okay.
But an average drivers on the road either do not have a driving license or got his license through the back channel. And not until that license expire, he will have to go and renew the license. That's when they have to go, because while I was there, I can see that they were identifying people that were using fake license, that they thought they were using the original license.
Okay.
So once they tender their this license is not genuine, it's fake. So you have to go through the process from the beginning. So
No penalty for it.
I mean they didn't penalize
They just
them,
correct.
but you just have to correct it. That you
Yeah.
just have to go through the proper channel,
Okay.
do all the normal things you are supposed to do. Take the test, written test, driving test. You have to do all that to make sure, which they enforce. They enforce it while I was there. So, but I don't know what happened in other facilities. But one thing I will say is Nigerian drivers need to be educated. We need to be educated. And the only way that can happen is you can't just, this is my own suggestion now, I could be wrong. The government cannot just say we want to sensitize. There has to be some form of punishment for any offender. Once you pay dearly for one offense once, trust me, you won't commit that offense the second time. And once that can be done, then we'll get to a stage that people will have no choice. But you remember back in the days, immediately there is a small traffic, people will face the oncoming traffic, drive against traffic, face oncoming cars. But that has reduced.
Okay, but it is still happening.
It's still happening, but it has reduced. But the ones that are caught are paying dearly for it. But it has reduced, unlike before. You go on Third Mainland Bridge, back in the days, immediately there's traffic, people will face it all the way from Adekunle to Yanowo. But you don't see that happening now. Same in most places. It has reduced. Then one other suggestion is, which I know it's not cost effective, it's going to cost the government money, but I know the government is doing it in some places, is to put dividers on the road.
Yes, I was, okay, go ahead.
When there's dividers on the road, there's no way, you have to maintain your lane, because there's no way for you to cross over.
Which divider are you talking about?
I'm
The
talking
median and all the rest
all
of it?
the medians in the middle of the road. So there's no way for you to cross it. Once we have that, people have no choice but to maintain their lane. But like I said, that might, when you're talking of the cost, it might be too expensive, and depending on the road.
I think you can find that in many parts of Lagos.
Oh yeah, the state government is knowing that.
Okay. Now, talking about not only sensitizing Lagos drivers or the drivers on Lagos roads, but also educating them, that is very, very important. I think that is why Lagos State has this institute for drivers or something like that.
Yes,
although,
the driving school, yes.
The driving school and all the rest of
But
it.
those are for professional drivers.
But who should drive?
Well, you know,
who should drive these commercial vehicles? Because
the driving school, I think, is for anybody can attend, from my understanding, but the main focus of it is for professional drivers. And what I mean by professional drivers is people that their daily bread is from driving, not just for people like me that only drive from my home to work, but people that they're either driving somebody or they're driving a commercial vehicle.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Those are the people that I think are using that facility more than anybody.
And these are the people that you do not see this kind of education reflect in the attitude on the road. These yellow driver buses.
The yellow driver buses.
They are professional. They are professionals.
In a way, they're supposed to be professional, but you can't put those guys in the category of professional.
They drive
drivers.
for survival. They drive for
They drive for survival. They drive for living, but I would not classify them as a professional driver.
Okay. Now.
Yes, their job from what they do, they're supposed to be professional driver, but you cannot classify them as a.
Okay. Now, looking at how safe and how considerate on Lagos roads, and looking at the amount of money the Lagos state government has spent on road infrastructure, including road markings and all the rest
markings,
of them.
yes.
Now, you find that some motorists still don't regard stopping at the zebra points, for instance, and even some pedestrians will not use the
footbridge.
Despite huge amount of money.
That's where education comes in. But you see, some of these things, I can't blame it on the. Some of them you blame on the government, some you blame on the individuals. Yes, the education aspect has to be there, where people have to be educated. But most of this education starts from a young age, right? Back in the days, we used to have moral instruction in school, ethics, all these things that we're taught all these things. I don't think we have this in our curriculum anymore in some of our schools. And if we have all this, for example, you're talking of zebra crossing. Most people don't even know the meaning of zebra crossing.
Sure.
You see, but pedestrian will stand and wants to cross, and the zebra crossing will be like just about 2 or 3 feet away from he or she, and you will see them standing way off the zebra crossing, and they expect people to stop for them. For me as a driver, you are not standing on the zebra crossing, I will not stop for you. But once I see you on the zebra crossing, you have the right of way at that moment. But a lot of drivers don't even know the meaning of that. That once you see somebody standing on the zebra crossing, that person has the right of way. At that time, you are supposed to stop for that person to cross. Or if there are more than one, you are supposed to wait for them to cross until you can move again. But a lot of people don't know it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where education comes in. But some of these people are not ready to be educated unless you force it on them.
And part of the ways you can educate people is to re-include it in the curriculum from maybe the early education aspect of the
early education has to do with it, but at the same time, the enforcement of it, that once you violate this, you have to go for a certain amount of hours to take some classes in driving school. That all these things, and for you to get your license back, you must answer some of these questions.
Okay. Now, you're still talking about the huge amount of money spent by government on road infrastructure, bus shelters, and stuff like that. It takes two to tango. You still see some commercial bus drivers stopping at undesignated bus stops, as well as commuters waiting at undesignated places. So these drivers will wait for them, pick them. Government has spent money to provide all these things.
Government has spent money to provide for some of these bus stops, bus shelters, laybys. Most especially the present government of Governor Akinwumi Ambode has spent so much money on laybys, bus stop, bus shelters. But you still see some of these commercial bus drivers that will stop at intervals at unregulated bus stops. But the only way this can be stopped is through enforcement, which I know the state government is doing, because I see them that when you cross some of these places, when you stop and if you're caught, they seize your bus. So some of these things have been done, but there were downfall drivers. You cannot treat them with light hands. You just have to be crude and cruel with them sometimes.
Understand the language. I mean,
That's
speak the language they understand.
That's the only language they understand, force.
Okay.
And once they see that, for example, you don't see them on some roads where they know that they can be arrested or their bus can be taken. You will not see them stop anywhere. They will not even open their door until they get to a regulated bus stop.
Okay. Now, because of our time, let's look at the rains are here now.
Yes.
What is a motorist expected to do with his vehicle before setting out in the rainy season?
Well, in the rainy season, the only thing you are expected to do is to make sure your wiper is working. Make sure your wiper is working. Check your wiper blades. If they are dry and brittle, replace them. And one other thing is, make sure your defroster is always also working. The reason why I ask for the defroster is when it's raining, if your AC is not working, the inside of the vehicle will get foggy when you rolled up the window. And if your defroster is not working, there's nothing to dry the windshield, both the rear and the front windshield. Once this is foggy, your visibility becomes clouded, and so you don't have good visibility, which could cause an accident. Then the other thing I would tell them is, in case you run into a flash flood or you get into a flood situation, what you need to do is, if you notice that the flood is going to cover your bumper, you better off staying away from it or find an alternative route, because your radiator fan is not designed to displace water. It's designed to displace air. When you enter the flood, the water is going to, once it covers your bumper, it's going to touch the fan blade is going to touch it. And while that blade is running, it will snap. It breaks the blade. So once you get into a flood situation, stay away from it. Then the air filter snorkel, which is the pipe that air comes through from the outside, sometimes the snorkel is pointing to the ground. Your engine is sucking in air. Once that hose or pipe touches the flood water, it's going to suck in the water. Once it's sucking the water, you cannot compress liquid. Your engine is not designed to compress liquid. It's designed to compress air. This will also damage your engine. So these are things people need to be aware of. But in a situation that you are able to go out of the flood situation, immediately you get out of the brake, step on your brake lightly. The reason why we advise you step on your brake lightly is to warm up the brake disc and the brake pad to dry the oily sediment on the brake pad and the brake disc, because you know most of our flood water, you see some oil slick on it, and all this will bind to the brake pad, which will not let it have friction, and you need friction to stop.
Okay. Now, because these men behind the camera are telling me our time is up now, or I should round up rather. Now, I want you to take these 3 questions before we go. The first one is, considering the huge amount of money Lagos has spent on light up Lagos, you'll still find some drivers with full lights when the road is fully lit at night. How proper is this, one? Then 2, what mantra will you drop before you leave this place tonight for civility, safety, and being considerate on Lagos roads?
Well, let me address the issue of the headlight. The issue of the headlight, I think, is in our law. I'm not sure. It's an offense to drive with your full light on. You're not supposed to use your I-beam unless you're in a dark area that you are the only one. Immediately you see an oncoming vehicle, you dim your light. That's the only way you're supposed to drive. But because there's no enforcement at night, people tend to get away with it. But I believe that we will get to a stage that the enforcement will be there and things will start happening. In terms of all the infrastructure the government have put in place, in some cases, you see some people that will even forget that they don't have their headlight on because most of the roads are
illuminated, yes.
brightly lit. So I give kudos to the state government on that. Well, in terms of the mantra, what I will leave, the only thing I can say is for Lagos driver is to more or less re-educate, reorientate themselves, and be conversant with the rules and regulation of the road. Because once you have the understanding of the rules of engagement of the road, you get home safe.
And when they can't do that willingly, something should compel them to do it.
Something should compel them, which is enforcement.
Thank you
Once
very much.
people start getting penalized, they will comply.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And you're welcome I thank you for coming to the program once again.
It's my pleasure anytime.
Viewers, that's where we'll wrap it up on the program today. Please let us do it together next week by the grace of God. Have a wonderful time and see you next week. Bye for now.